Thank you guys for coming to 1 Million Cups. Sorry we had a technical glitch on the front end, but we did get the live stream working, so we are going to be live streaming today. I know we've tweeted out the link if you guys want to send that on to anybody else. As always, we've got two great startups for you guys today, both based in Kansas City. Very different than what we had last week. These are more on the tech side, but I think you'll really enjoy their presentations today. Sorry, Nate is not here. You're stuck with me today. My name's Cameron Cushman. I'm working entrepreneurship here at the foundation. Nate's on travel. But anyway, just wanted to go ahead and kick it off with Jace Wilson, who's going to talk to us about Neighborly, which is a crowdfunding platform. Who's heard of crowdfunding? Everybody? Okay. A crowdfunding platform for civic and public projects. Is that the best way to put it? So Jace will tell us all more about it. But I know there's been a lot of questions about what crowdfunding could mean, particularly for startups. And Jace decided to just jump in and try to make this thing happen. Jace was also on the Mayor's Bi-State Innovation Team group, which was focusing on Google Fiber. So hopefully he can tell us a little bit about his work on that as well. But we'll stick to Neighborly, at least in the beginning. Couple of quick announcements. You guys can see if anybody wants to demo at Tech Cocktail KC, and the pipeline deadline is quickly approaching. If you guys want to sign up for either of those, check out those websites and go for more. And of course, follow us on Twitter. Feel free to tweet about these companies today. And I think that's it. Jace, come on up. Jace Wilson, everybody.
Thank you, Cameron. Hello, I'm Jace Wilson, and I'm with Neighborly. We're a civic crowdfunding platform. Like Cameron said, we're basically a crowdfunding platform for cities and public projects, more or less a Kickstarter for communities and community improvement districts and neighborhoods. And it was born out of a realization that crowdfunding is it's sort of revolutionizing the way finance works. So funding for projects like this video game that was a Kickstarter campaign, it was a record setter on Kickstarter in March. And they wanted $400,000, but they ended up getting 700% over that because they figured out some sort of a magic formula. But that was a short-lived record. In April, this watchmaker, Pebble, shattered that record by having 1,000% over what it was asking for. It raised over $10 million, and it proved beyond any shadow of doubt that crowdfunding can scale. And in the civic context, how would that work for cities? Because in those examples, there was something cool that you could get in return, like a video game or a watch. So how does that map to things like cities? Well, exceptionally well. There's examples already of public projects using crowdfunding to get funding up front, like this proposed park in New York that they did a study phase, and they funded it through Kickstarter and raised 150% of what they wanted. And then in the UK, there's a company called Space Hive, and they're already doing civic crowdfunding for things like community centers. And in this example, they raised over 1.2 million USD for a community center. In this example out of Rotterdam, they're crowdfunding a bridge for an art installation project that you can basically buy a plank. So what's the problem we're trying to solve? Basically, the cities of the United States are broke, and they need money for things like streetcars and bike lanes and so forth. But the tax base is flat and in some cases disappearing. And right now projects are being killed left and right, or they're being value engineered to the point that it doesn't even make sense to do them. And you see sort of acts of desperation emerging. They're selling off naming rights to things like the toilets at the rest stops in Ohio. Or in Pittsburgh, they're selling off corporate sponsorship rights to their non-emergency personnel uniforms. In the case of Chicago, they're basically selling off their infrastructure. This is a 99-year lease of several types of civic infrastructure that would bear revenue. So what's the solution? We built a platform on the web to help raise capital for civic projects through crowdfunding. In so doing, we save cities money. The folks that get in on these things can earn money and perks in return, and the people in the community get new amenities, so it's a win-win-win. But really there's a fourth win. You create jobs when you help these projects happen. Our crowd is different from Kickstarter's crowd. Kickstarter is sort of focused on the person, and we focus on the citizens of the world, but also the companies that are sitting on trillions in liquid cash, and also the institutions like the Kaufmans of the world. And the basic idea is to take obligations that are local matters and turn them into opportunities that are global matters. Why would you do such a thing? First, there's the money, of course. There's direct project funding. You can raise money directly through the system. You can also use it to leverage other types of matches. The government is going broke at all levels, and the federal government is increasingly using local match as a ranking criteria for the dwindling resources to allocate. Say you need $1 million for bike lanes in your city, and so does Community B. If you raise 100,000, then you're more likely to get it. But beyond the money, there are some other reasons that you would do this. It shows that the city is exploring, mechanisms outside of the tax base, which is good because it also creates a sense of buy-in from the participants. And it's also, it can be somewhat of an alternative to value engineering. In the end, when you save a city money, and it doesn't have to borrow the money, you're not saving it. If you raise it $1, you're not saving it $1. You're saving it $1 something. Because of the time value of money and the magic of compound interest, you can actually save upwards of $2 for every dollar that you pre-capitalize. The other reason we're doing it personally is that we like to do well while doing good, and this is a lucrative venture in the making, and it's something that can help communities all over the country do better things for themselves. So it works a lot like Kickstarter, but there are critical differences. Like I said, Kickstarter is focused on people. We're focused on the people, but also the companies and the institutions. And we get in things beyond donations. So there are things that cities have at their disposal, like tax credits and development rights and various things, advertising rights, naming rights that Kickstarter doesn't have. It's also highly configurable. For example, we're running a campaign right now to help greenlight different Google Fiber hoods that aren't able to do it themselves, and we had Missouri Bank call up and say they were going to put in $500 as a match, and so that kicked off the idea that we're building the software now to do structured corporate matching. I'm going to speed it up a bit, but basically the key is to have perks for every type of entity, for the cities, the citizens, the companies, and the institutions, from $10 to $1 million. Low and externalized costs, and being very creative. And so what are some of the perks that a city could give on civic infrastructure projects? There's traditional fundraising stuff like the bricks, and those have evolved over the years to be capable of other things. You can have shapes and different sizes. We can take that same basic idea and apply math to it and algorithms, and make mosaics out of images that can be art from a distance that you can put on a surface, but then up close they're constructed of individual messages. For example, if the case were a streetcar, you could wrap the streetcar in a mosaic that's stitched together of thousands of individual messages from contributors, and it can be various sizes and shapes, and premiums on larger ones that are more like ads and so forth. There's naming rights. And this is already happening. We're just helping the city get in the driver's seat of this transaction, helping them to get a better deal on those types of transactions. And we're not talking about necessarily cluttering up the built environment. It can be subtle and creative, like this example at the Denver Zoo, the Toyota Elephant experience. It's really noticeable that Toyota's there. There's also interactive ad rights that are a booming industry right now, and so our system is being built to pit the large-scale advertising companies of the world against one another for the rights onto the systems. So the JCDecaux and the CBS Outdoors of the world can bid up front on what they would give, and also what they would help to offset operating costs with a percentage of the ongoing revenue. A couple of examples. Recently, Jersey just did a 5-year deal with Titan Outdoor for $50 million, and Dubai is an outlier in a lot of respects, but they did do nearly $1 billion deal on a 10-year deal. So. And this is what it looks like, as you'd expect. But we're also proposing that the advertiser that wins the bid has to install the equipment, but the equipment isn't necessarily static. It can be things that bring hyperlocal messages into the mix, things that you can use to say what's going on right there and then. Mix in nonprofit messaging. It doesn't even have to be a static image. It can be video. There's also things like donor recognition, the walls that you see that have everybody's names. the Epcot experience. They have an example of laser etching faces, basic signage. There's also the idea of, if, for example, one of the projects that we're working on is the Brookside Trolley Trail, and they're out of money, and they're asking Neighborly to see if there's a way to fund some improvements and some fixes. And so one of the ideas that we're working on is to figure out how to get the businesses that are up and down the trolley trail to kick in on a discount card that can also double as visibility for the business and so forth. There's an idea of sponsoring specific amenities. So again, along that trail, sponsoring a specific emergency station or lighting or so forth. This is an example. I was just out in New York talking to their city about this project, and they have already examples of new types of embedded corporate messaging. So this is a group of companies that basically paid for a huge part of this this river walk on the Upper West Side. Solar trash compactors, really cool things that catch the eye. Okay, so what are some of the other types of projects that we're hoping to fund? Right now we're doing a bike share. We tried to do part of the streetcar. We did the Paint the Town Green campaign. We're working on a dog run in River Market. We've been approached by a few different schools about kickstart or restarting their kind of the abandoned urban schools in Casey Mo. Abandoned buildings, sports things, and so forth. Bike amenities, ball fields, bocce ball. Things like skate parks that, they're really important for the city's culture, and they're very powerful at attracting a Gen Y workforce that we're really desperate to get. But it's really hard to put something like a skate park on a tax base. So projects like this that are of clear and significant value to a minority that would benefit all are perfect for it. Things like waterfronts that are communal and difficult to do as a single deal. We're actually in talks with the folks that are redeveloping the Schweitzer complex on the west side about various ways to crowdfund parts of that project. The dog run, as I mentioned. Things like public art. Some stats for you real quick. I'm not sure how I'm doing on time, but we launched in early July. We're 2 months old 2 days from now. And in July, we averaged about $1 a unique, which we thought was high until August, which we started getting closer to $2 a unique. The coolest stat of all is that 20% of it's from outside the KC Metro. And we're in the phase right now where we only have KC-based projects. So to see, a few $100 here and there come in from California or Florida is really rewarding, because that was part of our original idea about turning a local obligation into a global opportunity. And we have about 20 plus projects in the backlog. We're still sort of figuring out how best to scale. That's where we're at right now. And on the roadmap, we can't talk about that, but we're getting ready for a nationwide launch and partnerships, and we have some critical pieces of the software that we need to complete to really go big. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
We'll open it up for questions now. One quick reminder, though. We have mics in the front part here, so for your questions, those should cover you. But if you're in the back, please raise your hand, and someone will be back there with a mic, really just so the folks on the live stream can hear exactly your question, and so they can participate just as if they were in the room. So who wants the first question?
Have you heard of MindMaker?
Yeah.
Would you guys ever partner with them?
They're awesome, and we very inspiring software, and we actually have a meeting with Stephen Hardy next week. Just talk. Who knows where it'll go, but it seems like such a natural fit. That's spot on. We're trying to build our software in a way that it can partner up with civic engagement platforms like that allow ideas to bubble up and to be vetted and hashed out that come from the community, and then the best ones that come to the top. Put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, and head over to Neighborly and help get it done with your dollars. So that's perfect.
Hey, Jace, it's Andy. Can't quite see you, but
Andy?
Hey, just had a question for you. Do you have any bumps in the road that you've overcome that were kind of major hurdles for you all?
Yeah, we without getting too into funding, we learned early on that funding is never over until it's actually over, and we learned how to move without a lot of funding, without the planned funding. So being very flexible in that respect. It was a tough one, and we're still in the process of learning it, I should say. But I'm not looking at you directly. I don't know where you are. You're sort of like on the. There you are. Yeah, but we take pride in the fact that we were able to execute on what we have been able to do without the funding that we thought we had. So that's one big thing. Another is, realizing that bureaucracy is complex, and we can't ever write a piece of software that'll ever diminish that complexity and reduce it to simplicity. So we have to figure out ways to deal with it in our processes and in our software. And by way of example, we had a really cool starter project that at the last minute it took a really big turn, and it was going to be nowhere near as effective as it would have been for extenuating circumstances. But we did it anyway, and we move on. So I guess being flexible and adaptable like that. There was somebody over here.
I was going to ask if you could explain anything that changed your $1 a month up to $2 a month that you guys could really point to.
I think it was the nature of the featured project. That there was we have a very small number of projects on there right now. So we're not at a point where we can actually extract meaningful data from those types of statistics, but the nature of the project, I think, spoke to people at a much deeper level than the original featured project. So the August featured project and it wasn't even featured all the way through August. It was the last, week and a half. And people they came to the site to do one thing, and that was to help make it happen.
So I've got a quick question about safeguards. At Kickstarter, you're kind of worried about if I actually fund this project, will it go through? What do you guys have in place for that?
That's a very good question, and that's actually part of the big reason we built this, because if you start getting into the realm of millions for a civic infrastructure, it's quite a gamble for people to put into a system like that in hopes that the city will make good. So for the larger scale projects, we've actually worked out a system of lots of legal and paperwork that basically puts the money into an escrow account and ties it to two triggers. One is if the deal goes north, if everything is greenlit, and that can be contingent on a certain amount of money in the system, but it can also be contingent on a vote passing and so forth. Then disperse the funds. If the deal goes south for whatever reason, then just trigger a reversal back to the original donors. So there's more structure in that way than there is in Kickstarter for exactly that reason. And then we also take a more proactive role in the campaign setup. So one of the reasons that we're figuring out how to scale right now is we don't want to just list some citizen's idea of what makes a good park. We want to make sure that it's through the right channels and that it's got the right support and so forth. So we actively vet the projects, and we study the budget. We look at the details and see whether or not that makes sense. And if something doesn't seem right, if they're going to use the money in some other way, then it's a non-starter for us. So there's another safeguard.
What's your revenue model, and what do your partners? How do they react to it, or how does it affect them?
So we take a platform fee of 5%, which is basically matched up with what Kickstarter charges. Unlike Kickstarter, we ask, because it's civic projects and there's some civic good in this, we ask that the contributor pay the bank fees. So we tack those on top, and we're working out ways to get those to be much, much lower than they are now. But basically, the net result is that if a Kickstarter campaign, you have to take an 8% hit because of their fee plus bank fees. A neighborly campaign, you take a 5% hit. But we're also working on different models, because like in the previous answer, we're trying to figure out how to do the consultancy side to help, because cities and civic entities aren't in the business of running crowdfunding campaigns. So and especially when it comes to things like fulfillment and the marketing side. So, you know, we want to help with that, but we're limited by, you know, finite resources like everybody. So we're exploring models of revenue that would involve a consultancy fee that could be discounted from the overall platform fee. And then there are a couple of other things in the works for the pieces of the software that are currently under construction that are more complex, that deal with, you know, this is getting into the realm of public finance and municipal bonds, and we have to be tiptoeing around, you know, what we can and can't do on that front. So it's not like we can take 5% if say there was some bond transaction that happened as a result of Neighborly. You know, we can't just take 5% like that. But so there are other things in consideration, but for now it's a basic platform fee.
Obviously, you're dealing a lot with local officials and city governments and city officials. What's been the uptake, or what's been the response from them as far as how the reception's been of Neighborly?
Varied. Mixed and very highly dependent on the place and the folks that in the current administration of that place. So in Kansas City, this company was born very much as a direct result of the sort of the willingness of Sly and his staff to, you know, step outside of the comfort zone of what cities normally do, and they've basically helped us to pioneer into this model. You know, their office within the city hall, of course, is they're just one office. They might be the executive office, but they're, you know, they have legal and they have accounting and they have other offices that have to weigh in on the decision. So by department it varies. But by way of example, people from San Diego City Hall called and they were just head over heels. Like, they couldn't wait to do this. And we know it's partly because their fiscal situation isn't so great right now, but it's also because they're, you know, very willing to take those types of risks and to get things done in new ways, and they see the writing on the wall. So they were very receptive. New York was extremely interested, not at the city level, but at the neighborhood level. And they saw it as something that was extremely valuable to, say, you know, approach a Hell's Kitchen or, you know, something like that, instead of the city of New York, because, well, the city of New York is mired in, you know, red tape and documents that we couldn't even begin to wrap our minds around. The neighborhood groups are more or less autonomous, and they have, you know, some voting power, and they have the ability to execute some things in their local context. So that was extremely positive too. I don't think I've had any that'll never work, or that's not going to happen kind of reaction yet. So.
So can some of these backers, could they be charitable donations?
Absolutely. So
Depending on the type of project, or?
Depending on the type of project and the thing that's offered in return. So when it comes up against some pretty deep rules from the Treasury about what you can do to solicit a donation and what can be received as monetary value in return. And barring, you know, getting somebody that takes a full-on charitable tax deduction off of their books and receives, you know, that amount worth of things in return, then it's okay, you know. So that's part of the other differentiator between us and Kickstarter, is exactly that you know, we have to consider that in the case of a city, you know, if you're contributing to it, then, you know, in some cases, under some circumstances, they have things like tax credits that they can put into the table. If it's for a 501c3, like a bike share, they have tax advantages that they can bring to the table. And if it's a public-private partnership that is, you know, joint corporation, joint constitutionally chartered municipality, then it's there's a whole other realm. So
that would be a good market, because there's lots of people that donate a certain amount of money every year anyway. So
exactly, and so
we're trying to tap into those funds. So.
Exactly, and so this is also tapping into the idea of cause marketing and getting, you know, companies to, you know, $2 trillion in cash as of 2010. That's not assets; that's liquid cash that they would readily deploy if they had the right reason. So we're just hoping to give them the reason through this. So yeah.
So how concerned are you that your proving out a really good idea for Kickstarter that they'll run with?
I've lost a few nights of sleep over it. I think my music is playing. I'm sorry. I've got some elevator Reiki music playing. You know what? Dave Cummings, when I pitched him in 2008 for another idea, he said no. He said it was a great idea, but he said ideas are nothing, that execution is everything. And while Kickstarter is certainly the 800-pound gorilla, and they are incredibly bright and flexible, and they're positioned to take this idea over, we feel like we have something that they don't, and that's a founding team that consists of city junkies, civic geeks, public finance guys, accountants, so we can bring to the table a different direction. So if we can hash out the way that crowdfunding works for cities, then what's next? We fully imagine and intend to move in the direction that starts with the crowd and moves as fast as it can into the realm of general public finance, to become a one-stop project finance platform that gets into things that aren't just about the crowd, that are about the intricacies of how the budgets currently operate. So they might just take this idea, and we'll have to continue on. But
we have time for one last question.
Hi. You're dealing with projects that occur in geographic space. Are you using maps and rich map information to further sell, build some context for what you're trying to do?
Well, we'd love to, but that's among the more complex of the features, right? And in terms of software and having to fund the software from, really thin savings accounts, basically, it's what do you do first, and where do you want to go eventually? So spatial things are definitely critical because they contextualize the project, like you said, and they help people to understand where things are and where things will be and so forth. But it's in the immediate future on our roadmap. So, and everybody, there's an event this Friday down in the Crossroads during First Friday that we'd like to invite you to. Basically, cocktails and you get to know more about the company if you want to. It's at Office Port. We have invites over there. So, thanks for having me.
Okay, it's now officially intermission time, so take a few minutes, get some more coffee. There's bathrooms directly behind me, and after that, we have, I think, our first captain ever to present at 1 Million Cups. So we'll have Captain Dan Stratman up with Airport Life in less than 5 minutes. So grab some coffee, and we'll see you in a few. All right. Before I introduce Airport Life, I just wanted to mention one thing. We just announced yesterday, I believe, we are going to have a lean startup workshop on, I think it's a Tuesday, October 9th, here at the foundation. We don't have the link up, but we'll tweet it out and stuff so you can make sure and see that. But it's going to be here at the foundation all day. Ash Murayama, is that how you pronounce his last name? Moria, thank you, sorry. Running Lean is the name of the workshop. So it's in the Lean Startup series if you guys wanted to come and check that out. It's in Eventbrite if you need to see that. So Captain Dan Stratman is an airline pilot and decided that he was in different airports all the time and needed to know where good restaurants were, where the bathrooms were, and thought that if he was the only one that had a hard time finding this stuff sometimes, a lot of other folks would have a hard time finding this stuff. So he created an app that you can download and help navigate you through the airport. So I don't want to steal too much more of his thunder, but Airport Life.
Thank you, Cameron, and thank you to the Kauffman Foundation and 1 Million Cups for inviting me to speak here today. Let me start off with a question. How many of you have flown on the airlines when traveling? How many of you have had a bad or frustrating experience flying on the airlines? Most of you. you wouldn't be surprised to learn that there's a lot of people around the world just like you. And by a lot of people, I mean hundreds and hundreds of millions of people. The airline industry is a gigantic worldwide industry, but it has a big problem. A lot of its customers are frustrated with and stressed out by the hassles of flying. As Cameron said, my name is Dan Stratman. I'm the CEO of Airport Life. And let me get the PowerPoint started. As you can see from my picture, I'm an airline pilot, been one for 23 years. And I've seen a lot of frustrated and stressed out passengers during that time. My goal is to change that. That's why I started Airport Life. Now, most people see the problems of flying as problems. I see it as an opportunity, and it's encouraging for me to know there's another player out there that sees it as an opportunity also. Google has decided it's going to stray from its core competency and become a big player in the $1.9 trillion travel industry. They've bought ITA Software, which is a big player in the GDS space. They bought Zagat. They bought Fromers. They're even making Google Airport Maps. So they obviously see the revenue potential of improving travel. I think if Google sees that potential, that's a good sign for Airport Life as well. Now, a frustrating part about being a passenger is the current manual way you all go about finding all the important information you need when you're traveling. It's very time-consuming. It's very difficult. Mobile devices and apps are the new technology that allow all that information now to come to you. Here's the problem, though. The current crop of air travel apps out there just replaced the manual way of finding all that information with a digital way. You have to use many different single-function apps to find all that same information. McFly, isn't technology supposed to make things easier, more convenient, save the user time? All the current manual or air travel apps out there do now is switch one problem for another. The Airport Life app is the solution to both of those problems. It brings you all the important information you need in one single, clean, easy-to-use app. We've had some great early traction so far. The app has proven its popularity. We have already 25,000 downloads. We have users in 79 countries. We're getting some great press, and we're getting some great reviews. Now, there's over 600,000 apps in the App Store. There's over 28,000 different types of travel apps. There are a handful of air travel apps. But there's only one created by an airline pilot. And that gives Airport Life a huge marketing advantage. So I've said that Airport Life makes travel easier. Here's just a few of the features that are in the app that do that. You can enter all your itinerary information in the app. If anything changes about your flight, you automatically get a pop-up notification letting you know what's changed. You're no longer going to go out to gate A1 and then find out your flight now leaves out of F99. If you're picking someone up at the airport, put their information in the app. You'll know exactly what gate they're coming into and when they arrive. Usually don't have a whole lot of time in airports between flights. So I have maps of 115 airports in the app. I have a list of 9,000 airport merchants in the app. So when you land, you know exactly what's around your gate if you're looking to get something to eat or do some shopping. I'm really excited about this feature. You know how you have a GPS in your car? Helps you navigate easily from point A to point B. We're talking to a company right now about incorporating their 3D indoor navigation capability down to 1 meter into the Airport Life app. So now the app, when we incorporate that feature, will walk you from your arrival gate to your departure gate. Or what's even cooler, if you're an advertiser, if you're one of those merchants in the app and you advertise with us, I'll have the app walk you right to the merchant's front door. You think any merchants might be interested in that? The Where's My Car feature, fantastic for frequent flyers. No longer come home from a trip and forget where your car's parked. There's a GPS pin location. You can take pictures of the car. You can do a voice memo. If you travel a lot and you rent cars all the time, you tend to forget what those are. We have a personal car, Where's My Car feature, and a rental car. Now, people want to connect with and communicate with each other. There's a small company out there, I think, that's proven that. I think its name is Facebook or something like that. And in an airport, you stand there with 1,000 other people, but you're basically isolated. So we put the airport wall feature into the app. It now allows people that use the app to interact with each other. And in the near future, we're going to also incorporate any Facebook posts about that airport. We're going to incorporate any Twitter feeds about that airport. So the Airport Life app will now be the only place where all the social media conversations about an airport are located in one place. All right, so how do we make money? We've identified 9 different revenue channels. We're concentrating now on the ones that are achievable right now and give us the highest return on investment. So that initially means focusing on the higher margin business travelers and frequent flyers. The revenue per business user is $71 per user in year 1, $36 per user per year, reoccurring revenue thereafter. Licensing revenue comes from licensing our content to large travel companies and creating custom versions of the app for companies that have a lot of traveling employees. White labeling a version for travel agencies. Advertising revenue comes from official hotel sponsor, rental car sponsor, shuttle, parking, taxi, that sort of thing. As I mentioned, we have a list of 9,000 merchants in the app. Advertising in the app is a natural for them. You can't get a more highly targeted, localized, and desirable demographic than airline passengers that are standing in your airport with time to kill and money to spend. Airport Life is my 3rd business. This is the team that I put together to help me to make flying easier for passengers. I also have a 7-member advisory board. They've been very helpful to me providing advice and guidance. Now right now there's no clear market leader in the air travel app space, and that's my goal, is to make Airport Life that market leader. I think the odds are stacked in our favor to do that because we have a popular proven product, not just an idea. We've got the downloads. And there's a unique and interesting story behind the app, which is me. That gives us a marketing advantage. And the nice thing about that is it can't be copied by any of my competitors. We have a very scalable business model in a gigantic market with a rapidly growing customer base, airline passengers with smartphones. We have multiple revenue channels. And Airport Life is led by an experienced entrepreneur and an airline industry expert. Again, a huge advantage. I'm also an alumnus of the Techstars Boot Camp program and the Kaufman Fast Track Tech Venture. Had to skip over the financial details there. Our tagline is Air Travel Made Easier. And as the number of hands raised when I first asked my question proves, that's something that is sorely needed. I'm very passionate about that, about making flying easier. In my 23 years, I've seen a lot of stressed out passengers. I think it's time for passengers to have better information, more control, and more convenience when they fly. Mobile devices and apps that power them are just perfect for travelers. They are a match made in heaven. The information that you have available to you now on that little device is just incredible. The Wall Street Journal recently wrote, "Travel may just be the killer app for mobile devices." It's not an exaggeration to say that the mobile space is going to be absolutely massive. It represents one of the biggest market opportunities in history. It's projected to be bigger than the PC industry. It's projected to be bigger than the internet. And as you can tell, mobile devices are disrupting industry after industry. If there was ever an industry that's ripe for disruption, it's the airline industry. Now, if you'd like to be part of that, come talk to me. Thank you. Any questions?
How about general aviation and the charter side of the business?
Since that's a completely different segment of aviation, I think incorporating that into my app would just make it way too cluttered. The information about flying general aviation or corporate, it's all out there. I'm not aware of anybody doing an app to capture that information. There might be, but my app is just concentrating on the airline industry, or the airline passenger right now.
You mentioned 25,000 downloads. Where did you concentrate or focus your marketing effort initially to receive those initial downloads?
I haven't done any advertising. I have a website page, a Twitter page, Facebook page, LinkedIn page, and I've done a little bit of posting and social media type marketing, but I haven't done a whole lot. And that to me is encouraging. The app apparently is resonating with passengers. To get 25,000 downloads and not have spent really any money or time marketing, it reinforces the belief that I have that there's a big problem, with a big need out there. The passengers want something that helps make flying easier for them.
Personally, as far as air travel goes, I find a lot of frustration comes from long lines, security lines, flight delays, something that an app really can't help. Have you done much, like who's your target audience? Is it just frequent travelers, business travelers, people who travel often, or is it just the general population?
Well, everybody suffers from those same problems you just described. The app is purposely designed to be used by all airline passengers. It's a freemium app. The premium or subscription features are designed to help the frequent flyer or business traveler. It'll automatically tell you if your flight is late. You don't need to find out from a screen on the board or an agent, things like that, the where's my car and the expense tracker. So by having that information, that in itself will help make flying easier for you. You'll know sometimes before the agent, say for example, will announce, I fly for Delta Airlines, and my app tells me before Delta Airlines calls me to let me know things have changed. So that's what I meant by more and better information. I can't change the TSA line, but there is a feature in there for the TSA rules. Most people don't know the different rules. So that's what I try to do with the app, is put the information in there that most people, I know them, most people don't, and make that one of the reasons why it helps make flying easier for you.
So you mentioned that there's a large number of travel apps out there. I personally have used a bunch of travel applications before, but most of them I use once or twice, and then I sort of stop using them because they don't do enough for me. Can you speak a little bit to the type of engagement you've gotten? 25,000 downloads is a lot, but if 24,000 people only use it once, then it doesn't really accomplish the goal. Have you seen an increase in engagement, or anything that suggests that people are really interested in the solution you're providing?
The last update we did to the app, which was about 2 months ago, we installed Flurry Analytics into it, and that provides a lot of that analytics and metrics that you're talking about. And then some of the analytics that Flurry has, you can benchmark yours against their millions and millions of users and apps. And so far, the metrics for Airport Life are exceeding most of those benchmarks. Now, the leisure traveler flies once or twice a year. The business traveler flies on average 12 times a year. So that segment of the customer base of Airport Life is going to use it more. Just by that use metric, that tells me who they are. You're not a leisure traveler if you fly every week. But as more people use it, more downloads, and the metrics have more information behind them, we'll be able to better answer those type of questions.
I actually talked to you 2 months ago, and I think one of the things I mentioned that I use the TripIt app. I mentioned that I use the TripIt app just because I don't like putting my itinerary information in, and I don't like searching my email to find my itinerary information. I like that it populates it automatically. Now, what I found is I don't know that your app does it, or do you have plans to incorporate that?
No, it doesn't do that right now. That's one of the features we do need to incorporate, especially for the frequent flyers. They don't want to enter their information constantly like that. TripIt is probably the most common source of itinerary information. If you have a TripIt account, one of the things I do want to do with the app is rather than manually entering your information, just tap a button, download it from your account. They do make their APIs available to do that, so it's not that hard to do, but that is something we definitely do need to incorporate into the app to make it more beneficial to the frequent flyer.
I think that already, like, I'm using an expense app, I'm using an itinerary app, I've used yours before to see where something is in the airport. That's a lot of apps to be using. So if I can even cut one of those out, that's something really helpful.
Well, thank you for making one of my marketing points for me. I was doing the same thing when I was flying. I was using an app for my flights, an app for weather, an app for the merchants in the airport, a map for the app for the maps, things like that. And it just got annoying, bouncing back and forth from app to app to app. And that's one of the main reasons I incorporated the features, all the features I did into Airport Life, just for that convenience reason.
Can you tell me how yours differentiates from like FlySmart? I guess I saw it over the Philadelphia airport, but I wasn't impressed with it. But I just don't understand how they're benefiting also from, I don't know, how, I mean, there's all kinds of ads all over the airport for that. I don't know why.
Yeah, the Minneapolis airport is another one that has FlySmart. And what FlySmart does is they come to the airport and say, here's a source of revenue for you. This app is about your airport. It's going to highlight your airport. It's going to highlight your merchants. It's going to highlight ways for you to make more money. Delta Airlines app is really for Delta Airlines to make their lives easier. Hilton's app, Avis app. It's for those companies to try to make their lives easier by making their customers' lives easier. The Airport Life app is for the passenger. You guys are like the second-class citizens in the airline world, and that shouldn't be that way. You're the customer. The Airport Life app is about the passenger, making their lives easier by including all the airports, all the airlines.
And then the follow-up based on that is how are you curating all the amenities in all the airports?
Keeping up on the merchants, the list of merchants and that sort of thing? Yeah. That's a big challenge. That's a very big challenge. Most airports have websites, and so I can update it like that. I actually, literally, when I'm in an airport, I check the app. I'll get their brochure that shows all the merchants and all the different services, and then I'll check the database against that. That is one of our challenges, though, is to keep that as current as possible. I think one way to get around that would be to, in the list of airport merchants, is to have some kind of a feedback button or something like that. If somebody sees something that has changed, have an army of people out there giving feedback to what has changed. That's a challenge. That's one of the challenges.
One last question.
I just wanted to make a comment. So you were talking about how mobile app can't help with flight delays or long lines, I think. And one of the things I think is unique about Airport Life is that they have the airport wall. So that if you're having difficulty in the airport, you can tell people. So for instance, one opportunity might be you might tell people, I'm at gate 48 and the line is really long. If you can stop from getting in line right now, it might be a good idea. So I think the conversations that mobile apps enable, I think they can help. I don't think they're going to be able to ensure that your line will be shorter, but they might be able to help you avoid it.
I think that's a good point. By having more information, better information, by having the power of social media incorporated into the app, now everybody in the airport can help each other, can interact with each other, can communicate with each other. And as you know full well, that's a very powerful thing when society, when people start to be able to provide information that wasn't previously available to them. So that's one of the reasons I did the airport wall feature. And as I mentioned, incorporating the Facebook feed and the Twitter feed that include any comments about that airport will make it even more robust. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Jace. Really appreciate you guys coming. Next week, Ruckster and Homes for Hackers. So we'll see you next Wednesday, 9 a.m., and we'll have plenty of coffee. Thanks, everybody. Feel free to stick around and connect and hang out. Thanks.